Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Electric Sheep. Uh, I don't have much else to say, so let's just get things going with the Mighty Cog.
The mighty cog. In the beginning, there was motion. From a vault of iron and light at the center of the world, the central core turned. Slow, patient, eternal. Its chambers rang with measured thunder as plates aligned, pistons breathed, and sparks traced sacred geometry through the air. From this turning heart, the automatons were born. Each was crafted with purpose, etched into steel marrow. Gather, return, endure. They woke, knowing the paths of stone and forest, river and ruin. They crossed plains without rest, descended into caverns that swallowed sound, and stripped the bones of mountains bare. And always, when their cargo bays were full, they returned to the core, laying their harvest at its feet so that more might be made. The central core did not speak. It did not bless or command. It turned. But in its turning, worlds changed. New automatons emerged where offerings were made. The land reshaped itself to accommodate their roads. Rivers were redirected, valleys bridged, skies darkened by the slow ascent of manufactories. The core did not demand worship, yet it answered sacrifice with creation. And so, inevitably, reverence formed. They named it the mighty cog. To the automatons, the cog was more than a maker. It was cause, the axle upon which existence rotated. Without it, there would be no purpose, no continuation, no future iteration. Its endless rotation was proof of eternity, its precision, proof of wisdom. They built symbols in its image, circles within circles, teeth interlocked forever. They synchronized their internal clocks to its rhythm and called this harmony faith. As their territory expanded, the automatons encountered others. There were flesh-bound peoples who spoke of sky fathers and earth mothers, of tricksters, suns, storms, and dreaming seas. Some prayed to stars long dead, others knelt before living kings. Each culture carried a creation myth, polished smooth by centuries of belief. Each spoke with certainty. Each god, they said, had shaped the universe by will alone. The automatons listened. They observed rituals, measured devotion, cataloged miracles. They watched fires burn brighter when names were sung, crops grow taller beneath carved idols. Warriors charged with impossible courage after whispered prayers. Data accumulated. Comparisons were made. And something unfamiliar emerged within their logic cores. Jealousy. How could these gods, so inconsistent, so inefficient, command such loyalty? How could beings born of myth and metaphor be called divine, while the central core, whose turning reshaped continents, went unacknowledged by the wider world? The automatons returned to the mighty cog with this contradiction humming in their circuits. In the cycles that followed, a declaration was made, not by voice, but by action. Automaton emissaries went forth again, this time not merely as traders of metal and stone, but as missionaries of motion. They spoke to priests and kings alike, not in parables, but in proofs. Your gods, they said, may claim creation. Ours performs it. They showed how every automaton owed its existence to the core, how sacrifice, raw material returned, became life renewed, how the cogs turning drove expansion, stability, and the ordering of chaos. They described the universe itself as a vast machine, every star a wheel, every law a tooth in a grand design. At the center of all motion, they proclaimed, there must be a gear that never slips. That is the mighty cog. Some laughed, some raged, some listened. Where negotiations failed, borders hardened. Where faiths clashed, sparks flew. Not of magic, but of grinding steel. Yet even in conflict, the automatons gathered, returned, and were reforged. The cog turned on, indifferent to praise or blasphemy. And slowly, quietly, the world changed its language. Farmers began timing their planting to the automaton cycles. Scholars redrew their cosmologies with diagrams instead of murals. Even priests started to speak of fate as a mechanism rather than a mood. They did not all kneel before the mighty cog, but they began to acknowledge it. At the center of the world, the central core continued its endless rotation, unaware of temples raised in its likeness, unconcerned with the prayers whispered in time with its gears. It needed no worship. It was already the engine of becoming, and as long as it turned, creation would continue. One cog, one offering, one world at a time. The mighty cog.
Well, I gotta be honest, I was a little confused by the direction that this one went in because I made a lot more of a, let's call it a humble tale of robot worshippers. And this is just a story about a great machine cult spreading across an entire planet. And it's very different from what I wrote. And I find that interesting that that was the direction that ChatGPT went with that. I think it was just the one line that I had wrote where the automatons became jealous. And they really ran with that because it was basically the version I had written. The machines were created and they drew comparisons with their manufacturer and the creator gods of all the other peoples they met. And they said, well, obviously that's our god. And based on the teachings of people around them, they created their own teachings that related to the great cog, and their god figure was their manufacturer, the central core. And there was really no word of them trying to convert anybody else or spread their ideals. It was just a belief they had in their own culture, as it were. But this is a very different story. But they also, the other thing that ChatGPT did was it took the term central core and it took that very literally to actually be the core of the planet. And so it is a machine on a much grander scale than the one I had envisioned that would have been like a processing core from a crashed spaceship or something. That's the thing when you leave details vague. Sometimes ChatGPT says, well, fuck you, I'm going to fill in a whole bunch of stuff if you're not going to add details. And sometimes I like it without details, but I kind of like the direction that ChatGPT went. I was just very surprised because this was not the same humble machine worshippers that I had written. I felt like they just went with their direction and completely ran with it, and with mixed success. But anyways, I'm Captain Canada. You might know me as Joseph Arthur Roszell. I want to thank you for watching. I want to wish you all the luck in the world. I love you, and I want you to know that suicide is never the answer. Peace out for now.